point of view, you just got a custom controller. And so you go on and you boot up your favorite game, Call of Duty, and you hop into a match, only to find out that you are actually trash and you are actually playing way worse than you were playing with a regular controller. After a few games of playing like trash, now you're thinking you just spent $200 for absolutely no reason and it just went down the drain, and now you're thinking you might as well just go back to your old controller because at least you knew how to play with that. But then you hop on YouTube and you find a video from Matthew the Best on how to get used to a custom controller. After watching that, 1 week later, you are now the best player on Call of Duty. All your friends envy you. Now you have 2 girlfriends and you just won $1 million from a tournament. The end. So how exactly did I get to this point? So let me show you how to master one of these new custom controllers, and after this video you are for sure going to be a way better player than you were in the past. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So most likely you're viewing this video because you just got a controller and you're not playing as good as you thought you were going to be playing. All the pros that you watch use a custom controller, but then when you go to use it, it's just not working out for you. So let me just explain how to get used to these things. And just to reiterate one point, it does not matter which custom controller you personally have. I mean, I have 3 different custom controllers. I have a SCUF controller here that uses paddles. I have a HexGaming controller here that uses buttons, and then I have this new HexGaming controller that just came in the mail yesterday that uses like a hybrid system of like a modular paddle system. So really all 3 of them, they are all different in their own ways, but they all use the same mechanics at the end of the day. Now let's begin by looking at a controller and seeing its design and how exactly you typically play and how to change from that. Now I have a PS5 controller in my hand, but of course this applies to a PS4 controller and Xbox controller. It doesn't really matter. So normally when you hold a controller, you're gonna hold it like this, right? And when you hold it like this, I do it and I've been doing it for a long time. What I find myself doing is that whenever I shoot with the R2 buttons, or on Xbox it would be like the left trigger button, I tend to clench my hands. I always do this and it's just a habit that I've always done and I've never had a reason to change that. So whenever you hold it and you're clenching your hand just like this, what happens is that when you go over to one of these custom controllers where you're not supposed to clench your hands, what happens is that when you shoot, you automatically start pressing on the paddles. So that's the first issue we're gonna address. So how exactly do you get used to that? Well, one thing you can do is when you grab one of these custom controllers, it doesn't matter which one it is that you just get your hands in the correct position that you would normally do, and just go ahead and without even having a game on, just go ahead and start pressing the R2 and L2 buttons without clenching your hand. That's gonna be the first step before anything. After you do that, maybe do it a couple times and then go ahead and start pressing on the paddles without pressing on the shooting button. So yeah, just go ahead, press it, and yeah, it's just to get your mind in that motion that, hey, whenever I press on one of these buttons, it has to be independent of each other. You can't be pressing both at the same time. You have to be pressing one at a time. So it's just one thing that you have to get your brain used to. The next problem that we're gonna see is that when you have a PS5, PS4, Xbox controller, whenever you go to jump, you're gonna be taking your finger off the thumbstick and you just move it over to the X, or if you wanna crouch, you're gonna move it over to the circle button. And of course, the whole point of buying a custom controller is remapping it to the back. So we need to avoid pressing these 2 face buttons. Or in the case of this controller where we have 4 buttons, we need to avoid pressing any of these 4 buttons all together. And one way I went about fixing this whole issue is that I put tape over the X and O buttons so that I knew deep down if I moved my thumb off the thumbstick and I started clicking on the X and O, it would not be the same feeling as pressing it when there was no tape. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm doing something wrong. I'm not supposed to be doing that. And so I immediately move my thumb back onto the thumbstick and I start trying to use the back paddle. Now, maybe this helps for some people, maybe it doesn't. But another trick you want to do is just load up a game of firing range if you play Apex, or a private match if you play Call of Duty. And what you're gonna do is just go in there and just start jumping and sliding, just repeat that motion over and over again. And you're gonna do this practice without pressing any of the front facing buttons. You're just gonna go ahead, just go and run in a straight line and just jump and slide, or jump and crouch, either of the two. All you're trying to do with this is just trying to get used to just pressing on those paddles independently. And remember, while you're doing this, make sure you do not shoot, and vice versa. So what you could do in the private match, if you could load up some bots, or maybe if you have some targets that you could shoot at, go ahead and try shooting at the targets without pressing those paddles. Now, once again, this is just training your mind that, hey, I'm not supposed to be pressing the trigger and the paddle at the same time. I gotta be pressing them independently of one another. And another thing to take note is that if you're in the main menu, whether it be the PS5 menu, PS4 menu, or the menus on the game itself, go ahead and start using those paddles. Get used to using those paddles. Even though it doesn't really matter as much on those menus, it's just good to train yourself that, hey, I gotta use those paddles on the back of the controller and not the front facing buttons. Now, I've been using these type of custom controllers for a long time now, so I actually use both depending on the situation. So for the menus, I'll be using the front face buttons, and for the paddles, I'll be using that in game. But for most of you guys starting out, you do not want to use the front face buttons at all. You want to use only the back buttons or the back paddles. Now, if you happen to have a controller that has like 4 paddles, I know like the SCUF Impact has that, or a controller like this that has 4 buttons in total, what you could do actually is take a rubber band and secure your finger to the thumbstick, because literally there's no reason why you should be taking your thumb off the thumbstick to press any of the front facing buttons. So that's a way for you to just keep your thumb on the thumbstick and just avoid taking it off at all costs. And even if you try to take it off, you know that the rubber band's gonna try to prevent you from doing that. So in the back of your mind, you're just like, you know what, I have to take my thumb and keep it on the thumbstick. And for my third or fourth, or I don't know, last point, guys, when you're doing this whole process of learning how to use a custom controller, the last thing you want to do is go back to a stock PS4, PS5, Xbox controller. Do not do that, because it will impede the progress of you learning how to use these custom controllers. When I was learning for the first time, I actually didn't even pick up my PS4 controller. I left that thing in the drawer. I never picked it up. I stuck with the SCUF, and I just went into a private match practicing, and trust me, over time you do get better with it and you will see the results. And if you find yourself getting used to the paddles, getting used to pressing them when you want to press them, well, then go in the firing range or the private match and begin trying to jump and shoot at the same time. Now, I know that's kind of counterproductive, but what I'm trying to tell you is that get used to like doing jump shots, or get used to doing like crouch shots, things of that nature. Because after all, the whole point of you buying one of these custom controllers is to utilize those mechanics that you can't typically do on a normal controller. And so I think that covers all the points, but just to go over it one more time, guys, when you hold one of these controllers, first, get used to pressing one button at a time. All right, you got to get used to not pressing the trigger and the paddle or the button at the same time. Do not do that. So just load up a game, get used to just pressing the shooting button, the aiming button, and one of the paddles by itself. Next, make sure that you do not press those front facing buttons. I mean, X and O if you have 2 back buttons, or all 4 if you have 4 back buttons. So like I said before, you could use tape to just cover up those buttons, or you could use a rubber band if you have 4 buttons on the back. Well, it's up to you. Then once you master that, then you can go to the advanced techniques where you're actually able to do like jump shotting, crouch shotting, drop shotting, those type of things that don't require you to move your thumb off the thumbstick to one of the X or O buttons. But guys, remember, do not give up. I know it's kind of difficult and you're gonna play like crap. 100% you are gonna play like trash, and it's gonna be very demoralizing. You're gonna be thinking that maybe you should just go back to an old stock controller, but trust me, do not do that. It's just a little learning curve that just takes a little bit of time, but once you master it, you're gonna notice that you're gonna be a way better player than you were in the past. Your KD is definitely gonna go up, and you're definitely gonna see a difference in your performance. And in case you're wondering whether or not you should buy a custom controller that has 4 back paddles or 2 back paddles, I always recommend that you just go for one that has 2 back buttons. Don't bother with the 4, because really and truly you do not need buttons for your triangle and your square, because those aren't as important as your X and O. Triangle and square, you could do that easily without having to break a sweat. It's not going to make a difference in your gameplay. It's not really going to give you a competitive advantage. So really just go for 2 back buttons. And so with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Of course, if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe for more content just like this. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. And if you guys have any questions that I'm not able to answer in the comment section, make sure you guys head over to my social media pages, because you can hit me up on there as well. I really don't mind. But anyways guys, my name is Matthew. Thank you so much for watching. But as always, peace out.